Thank you so much for joining me today on Just Praise Him Radio. I'm your host, Glenda Lomax, and my job is to inspire you to a closer walk with Christ. Now here's the show. Hello, believers. Welcome to the Just Praise Him radio program. I'm your host, Glenda Lomax, and the title of my message today is, She Didn't Know Who She Was. I want to tell y'all a story. This is a true story, by the way. Kathy Boone was 49 years old when she died after developing breathing problems in Oregon in 2020. She was homeless, living in a warming shelter in Astoria, struggling to survive. People who were close to her said she was a very caring and giving person. What Kathy never knew is that she was actually a wealthy heiress. She had an inheritance of $884,000 left to her by her mother, which sat unclaimed while a private investigator tried to locate her. And all this time she's living in the streets, barely scraping by, trying to get warm in warming shelters and things like that. Authorities wondered if maybe her mother's death in 2016 contributed to her relapse with drugs and homelessness. Kathy thought she was just a homeless woman with no money. She did not know who she really was. She was a wealthy heiress, but what she did not know did not help her, did it? I want to talk tonight about Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son in the Bible. He was the man who was lame in his feet, and in that time, lame people were not treated well at all. And y'all probably know this, but how you are treated affects how you see yourself for the rest of your life, especially if you're treated bad when you're young. Here is what the Bible said about lame people. Then, this is before Jesus came. It's in the Old Testament, in Leviticus chapter 21. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron, saying, Whosoever he be of thy seed in their generations that hath any blemish, let him not approach to offer the bread of his God. For whatsoever man he be that hath a blemish, he shall not approach, a blind man, or a lame, or he that hath a flat nose, or anything superfluous, or a man that is broken-footed, or broken-handed, or crook-backed, or a dwarf, or that hath a blemish in his eye, or be scurvy, or scabbed, or hath his stones broken. I don't know what that means, to have your stones broken. No man that hath a blemish of the seed of Aaron the priest shall come nigh to offer the offerings of the Lord made by fire. Now this is the line of the priesthood. He hath a blemish. He shall not come nigh to offer the bread of his God. And we're all priests now, right? He shall eat the bread of his God, both of the most holy and of the holy. Only he shall not go in unto the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he hath a blemish, that he profane not my sanctuaries, for I the Lord do sanctify them. And Moses told it to Aaron, and to his sons, and to all the children of Israel. Being lame, or blind, or having other disabilities then was seen as being connected to sin in that time. And so those people were shunned, and they often became beggars. So here is Mephibosheth's background story. 2 Samuel 4:4. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame. And his name was Mephibosheth. Also, note here, and I believe this is why she ran with him, the surviving sons and male heirs of other kings or preceding kings were generally executed when a new king took over to prevent them from trying to claim the throne. 2 Samuel 9, starting in verse 1. David is king of Israel, reigning in Jerusalem at this time. And David said, Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? Remember, he was Saul's son, and he saved David's life. And there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is he. And the king said, Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of God unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan hath yet a son, which is lame on his feet. And the king said unto him, Where is he? And Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, in Lodebar. Now, this same Machir, by the way, he had taken in Mephibosheth to help him, but he also, when King David was a fugitive, he took care of David. Same guy. Then King David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, from Lodebar. And when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was coming to David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said, Mephibosheth. And he answered, Behold thy servant. And David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? Then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertained to Saul, and to all his house. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruits, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth thy master's son shall eat bread always at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then said Ziba unto the king, According to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table as one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son, whose name was Micah. And all that dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants unto Mephibosheth. I don't think Micah was ever mentioned again in the Bible after this, in verse 12. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table, and was lame on both his feet. So Mephibosheth saw himself as a lame beggar, which is what he was, but the king saw something entirely different. The king saw that he was of royal blood. In 2011, in February, I had a vision. When I came across this vision, it's when I got the idea to do this podcast. The vision was of a homeless man, and he was pushing a shopping cart, and, he had all his stuff in his shopping cart. And he was just, looking around, going ahead where he was going. And he did not see, but off to the side of him, dressed in all his majesty, was Jesus. And he was holding out a golden treasure box, and he was pleading with him to take it. But the man did not see him. If he had received that box and what Jesus was offering him, his life would have changed forever, wouldn't it? So many people have not received the treasure that Jesus is offering. But we have, so we know what's in there. I'm going to tell y'all a story. One day in 1997, I was in a courthouse in Louisiana running records to determine ownership of a particular piece of land the client wanted to lease and to explore for oil and gas. Louisiana has a reputation for being a difficult place to run records. And by running records, what I mean is running title to see who owns every little piece of the surface and the minerals. Only those of us who are not licensed attorneys cannot legally, quote, run title. I came across one little parcel that I could not run out. It was like it did not belong to anyone, but it had to belong to somebody. It was not registered as belonging to the state. Somewhere there is a deed or a probate file where that land was purchased or awarded. Something wasn't filed in the right place. Whoever that person's heirs are, they are owed a lot of money, and I do mean a lot, because I saw the production map for that property, and it had been producing for years. If I remember right, it was Exxon that had production on it then. I can't remember for sure. But I turned to another landman I was working with who had run records there for years, and that there was a parcel with no known owners that was just producing like crazy. And he told me the most interesting story. And I want to share this story with y'all. It's a really cool story. It's been over 25 years now since I heard it that day in the courthouse. But it went something like this. Years ago, years before we were there in 97, some landman was running title on some land there, and he discovered some producing acreage that belonged to a certain heir after he ran the title out. I can't remember, but I think somebody had died and he had to go get the probate file and all that to determine the end result. And that's really common when you're running out the title on something and buying leases. Then you have to run down every single heir to see who's still alive and who's not. Let me explain. Let's say Joe and Margie Brown own some property. Let's say they own 10 acres. Then Joe and Margie Brown die in a car wreck without ever making a will. That's called intestate, when you don't have a will. You die intestate. What that means is their property now passes in certain percentages to each of their 10 children and whoever else under Louisiana law, if that's where they lived. Then you have to track down those 10 children and see if they're alive, and if they're not alive, you have to see who their heirs are. And you have to find the probate files and the wills and all that stuff and all those people to see who they left their stuff to. If they're not still alive, you have to run out their heirs' title as well. Maybe that's why they call it running title, because you do a lot of running to find all the owners, for real. Especially in Louisiana title, because the land passes differently there. The laws are different. So the story was, there's this guy and he's running the records so he can buy leases from the owners, and he finds this one heir in the mix as he's running it out, and he's reading all the probate files and all that apparently had a very unusual name. Well, the story was nobody knew where to find the heir, and the minerals they owned had been producing, but no one had an address for this woman. Well, this landman, he'd been out in the field buying leases in that area, and he remembered that same very unusual name on a mailbox because it was an unusual name, and he had noticed it because of that when he was out buying leases. So, long story short, he run out the records, and he drove to this woman's house, and he got to tell her she was very, very wealthy. I don't know how much she had, but if that land had been producing for long, she has some money, y'all. I'm not even kidding you. When they don't know who owns a piece of property, they have to put that money into like some kind of a special trust account or something like that and hold it. Until he got there, she did not know who she was. I wish I could have seen the look on her face when he told her. I would have loved to have been the person to deliver that news. I would have been so happy to do that, to be able to go to somebody that maybe didn't have much money and tell them that, hey, guess what? You really do have a lot of money. You just didn't know you had it. You didn't know who you were. That woman's very rich. To this day, I remember being in that courthouse, and I cannot remember what parish I was working that day, but I was running records on a portion of land when I found that one portion of an acre in the land records that did not show any owner. If the rightful owner or owners ever find out, they will be dancing a jig, because that was back in 97, y'all. That's 27 years ago? They're going to have a lot of money, because when oil's producing, it produces, and they keep pumping it out as long as it's profitable to pump it out. So I want to tell y'all something. As I was working on this sermon, the Lord suddenly began speaking a word to me. And I saw that this word is for all of God's true people, those who truly love and serve Him and do their best to avoid sin. I just saw that in the Spirit as He was talking. To be clear, this is not for people who say they're His, but they live like the world and they're just doing whatever they want to do. Okay? So here's the word. Yea, I say to you now, my people, you truly do not know who you are, but in this time I will show you and everyone around you who you are. I will show them you who are truly mine are mine, and that you are blessed from me. I will shower you in favor and blessings until even your staunchest skeptic cannot deny it is I who does this. In a time of not enough, when they who believe not have little or nothing, you will become the wealthy. And in the spirit, I saw him turning the tables on the very wealthy. The wealth of the wicked will come into the hands of my people, who will use it for my kingdom purposes and not consume it upon their own lusts. In a time when all around you is disintegrating, I shall raise you up to show the many unbelievers still in the world that you are mine, and I myself have chosen you for this time. My mighty power will flow through those of you who walk in purity. All around you shall witness it, and know it is not by your own might, not by power, but by my Spirit these miracles are happening. Now I want to stop here and make a note. See what he said? Those of you who walk in purity. Years and years ago, he told me that the key to walking in his power was to walk into purity. Because, think of a pipe, and this is what he showed me at the time. Think of a pipe. If that pipeline is clogged up, not very much gets through it, does it? But if it's open, you can have high water pressure, whatever, flowing through there. Remember that pipe. It's very important. He said, my mighty power will flow through those of you who walk in purity. All around you shall witness it, and know it is not by your own might, not by power, but by my Spirit these miracles are happening. He's talking about his dunamis miracle-working power, y'all. Fear not their faces when they come against you, my children, for I, your Father in heaven, have taken note of you who have devoted yourselves to my service, you who have laid down all to serve me, you who have given and given and given. I have seen your humility and your works and your sacrifices to do my will, and in this time you shall have many times over that returned back to you for all to see. You shall have all that and much, much more as unbelievers clamor to you to hear about my son's sacrifice on the cross, as they plead with you to be saved. You who are left longer on the earth before the end will lead many souls to me in this time. The last souls to enter before the door is closed forever. If that don't give us a lot to think about, I don't know what does, y'all. I hope this podcast has been a blessing to you. I know it's short. I'm sorry about that. Thanks for listening. Jesus bless you. Y'all have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Just Praise Him Radio, sponsored by the friends and supporters of JPH. You can contact me by mail at my new address, Glenda Lomax, JPH Inc., P.O. Box 854, Altus, that's Altus, Oklahoma 73522, or by email at jphtoday@gmail.com. Don't forget to visit the website for prophetic updates at wingsofprophecy.blogspot.com. JPH is not affiliated with any nonprofit organization, church, or denomination.